We begin on this new message that Donald Trump's FCC happens to be sending to one Whoopi Goldberg over at that show that I know you love to hate, The View, okay? So this is not very good news for Whoopi because they've been kind of indicating all along that, you know what, they have very little patience for a show that is so off the rails and so severely divorced from reality and so, well, frankly, divisive, right, to America. So Brandon Carr is the new guy at the FCC. Typically, the FCC doesn't really get involved in such stuff as trying to say, hey, you might want to be fair on your news coverage. But this is, after all, a different FCC and a different kind of Trump administration. And you know what? They're getting a little tired of some of the antics. Things like this. Remember when Whoopi Goldberg said this about how he was going to get rid of gays and lock them up and all kinds of crazy stuff?
I'm going to be, on day one, I'm going to be a dictator. Who says it to you, tells you. I'm going to put you people away. I'm going to take all the journalists. I'm going to take all the gay folks. I'm going to move you all around and disappear you. If that's the country you want, you know who to vote for. If that's not the country you want, you have to make a decision.
Well, they made a decision. And she was talking a bunch of smack, right? That's a bunch of garbage. And she knew it. They all knew it. I mean, all of these organizations, maybe they were getting paid for certain kinds of points of view. We can talk about that in USAID, but I will say this. Donald Trump's new head of the FCC is not messing around. And I'm not talking just about the letters, which we're going to get to. I've got a copy of the whole letter that he sent to Bob Iger over at Disney. Disney is the company, you see, that owns ABC News, and ABC News is the producer of The View. This is Brandon Carr, forgive me, out today. He just dropped this little, well, I guess you'd call it a short, this piece on social media. I'm telling you, this guy is not to be messed with.
All right, made it to the top with Hassan and his crew. They're swapping out the lighting system up here. Wonderful day with them. America's tower crews get the toughest jobs done. Super grateful for their work.
Wow, right. You saw that, right? I mean, that was kind of a ways down. I mean, I don't really know what he was thinking doing something like that, but maybe he likes to climb mountains on the side, do a little rock climbing, something like that. He's clearly not afraid of heights, and he's not afraid of Disney's Bob Iger or anyone at ABC News, and certainly not Whoopi Goldberg. Take a look. We also saw recently that he made it very clear he was going to move forward with some of these complaints that had been lodged against these networks for biased coverage. We know that Donald Trump, of course, has already sued and settled some of those lawsuits, which has actually recently come up for Brandon Carr. The Wall Street Journal had a piece recently saying, gosh, everybody thought that, like, Trump would be so pro-business and he'd be great with media. And, well, it turns out Trump's not really that keen on the media. Newsflash, guys. Wall Street Journal, you might want to wake up to that. He really didn't appreciate the media coverage he's gotten for the last, 8 years, shall we say. So here's this letter from Brandon to Bob Iger, okay? So he's now the guy who's running the whole FCC. So he's got the power. This is why this is important, guys. He's got the power to actually strip ABC of its affiliations that it gives to its affiliates. And so therefore, they wouldn't be able to collect all that revenue from all their various affiliates all over the country, and they wouldn't be able to air The View on those particular networks across the country. He writes, Dear Mr. Iger, Americans no longer trust the national news media to fully report accurately and fairly. Indeed, a recent Gallup survey showed only 31% of Americans have a great deal or even a fair amount of trust in the media, which includes ABC. This is a historic low for your industry and represents a steady decline from a high of over 70%. Describing this freefall, Jeff Bezos, owner of another national media outlet, The Washington Post, recently stated that our profession is now the least trusted of all. Something we are doing is clearly not working. And then he goes on to cite the fact that they had to pay $16 million because George Stephanopoulos thought he could be a big shot and actually libel the president on the air. Remember that one? Well, that cost him $16 million, or ABC, I should say. And so he cites that as an example of their untrustworthiness. He even cites Good Morning America, World News Tonight, David Muir, NFL football, Jimmy Kimmel's late night show. And then there's this subtle message, shall we say, to the one and only View. In other words, the show that is perhaps the most brazen of all is the one that's the elephant in the room. You know the elephant I'm talking about, right?
My generation fought tooth and nail so that you would not have to hear that kind of speak
this
again.
rhetoric, yeah.
You would not have to hear or be. We fought to make sure. We fought and said to people, if you're a stand-up, the only comic that can hit everybody really is Don Rickles. You're the only one who gets to do that. But everybody else has to be better and smarter and funnier.
Well, he was hilarious, too.
Well,
this guy's not even funny.
But that's the point. That's the point. But my other point is, just know we fought to make sure you couldn't do that. Talk about women. Talk to women the way people are talking. Talk to men. Talking to gay folks. Talking to anybody who is different visually. You didn't get to say stuff to them like that. Now folks have lost their mind.
She was actually referring to the comedian that appeared at Madison Square Garden. And while I don't need to justify any of his jokes, what I will say is that typically in comedy, you know, there are various, dare I say, stereotypes, right? I'm Irish. There are stereotypes we can make about the Irish. And you know what? I'm going to get those jokes all day long because, you know, they're funny, right? And so Whoopi's completely lost her sense of humor. It's amazing that she was ever a comedian because she has no humor, you see, when it comes to anything Trump. And so Disney is now looking at this ABC network and particularly this show and particularly Whoopi Goldberg herself as a liability. So you saw recently, I reported on this, I said this was coming, they fired a bunch of her producers. So all of Whoopi's producers are bye-bye. They kept the guy who's like the main guy at the show, but they're getting rid of all the producers. They've also told Whoopi to tone it down. And so you'll notice lately, she really has backed off trying to go after Trump. She's all of a sudden going after Elon Musk. He's the newest, latest and greatest target. I mean, she was even making fun of his kid's name. It's really kind of disgusting. But she has to have somewhere to go, and she's been boxed out of Trump land because they're like, you know, you're kind of on your last legs. We don't really have a whole lot more patience for this or for you, Whoopi, and your giant salary. So you'll notice she's very, very quiet. And I think she's struggling to kind of find her niche. I mean, what does she have if she doesn't have Donald Trump to go after? What do any of them have? Not much, right? And you consider this. I mean, if she was there for any reason, that reason was to go after Trump. You remove that opportunity for her and you're left with what? Just a woman who, let's face it, is not very nice to look at. All right? You know, and they're really into their hairstyles and their clothes over there on The View. And, you know, I'm not tuning in to see what Whoopi's got on today, shall we say. On top of that, you've got Disney dumping its two big DEI signature programs. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. They don't want it anymore because shareholders are like, this is no good. I mean, they join a lot of companies. Goldman Sachs recently this week just came out and said they're getting rid of DEI. Nobody wants this because it turns out that the DEI stuff doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't actually make any money. And so shareholders are saying, hey, enough is enough. And you've also happened to got a president who's making it, well, it already was illegal. Let's face it, it's not constitutional. You can't discriminate against somebody based on the color of their skin. And if you're hiring somebody who's Hispanic or black or trans or whatever, I mean, actually, that's a whole other category. Let's stick with the color of the skin. You cannot actually say, I'm not going to hire the white girl because I need to hire the black one. That doesn't fly in America. Harvard University found that out, courtesy of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. So now they're looking at dumping Whoopi Goldberg. She has become a massive liability. The show is in a bad spot. I mean, they had that guy, what's his name, Charlemagne. Charlemagne, do you know him? He's a radio host. He went on the show. He actually told them to their faces that they basically suck. We're going to get to that in a second. But reminder, one of the reasons I created 76 Research was because of all this insane DEI stuff, right? So, if you're thinking about investing in Disney and you're looking at how the stock has gotten cut in half over the last 5 years, maybe it has something to do with, in the last 5 years, we put in place DEI. So guess what? We changed our storylines on Snow White. We changed our storylines on Captain America. Now Captain America, the Marvel franchise, right? That was like unstoppable. It's a mess. They've actually got the worst box office receipts they've ever seen for the Captain America franchise. And it's all because of this DEI crap. Okay? So, you know what, as an investor, I care about what makes money. And that's what you need to care about. That's what we care about at 76 Research. Go to 76research.com, use my code word dollar, DOLLAR, so you can sign up for the 76 report. You get that. I'll tell you, for those of you that are ambitious out there and really want to get serious about investing, look at these model portfolios, 10 to 15 stocks in each single one of them. We have the American Resilience portfolio, it's growth. We have inflation protection. We have income builder because, of course, if somebody wants to retire someday, you better have some income coming in the door.